Welcome, everybody, to our quick lunchtime banter. My name is Sabine Beppler-Spahl. I'm chairing the meeting today. I'm the chair of Freiwillig Institute. We organize salons in Berlin, debates, pretty much like, well, a bit smaller, but we also organize debating matters. Anyway, we've got a fantastic panel for our session, which is From Powerhouse to Populism, Germany Today. And I'm going to introduce them in the order that they'll be speaking. They'll have very, very little time because we've got this very short session here. Patrick is the principal of Zaha Hadid Architects. He's also an author and a philosopher. Can't say any more because we've got little time. It'll be Licia speaking second, Licia Leal, who is a student of urban and regional planning in Berlin. She's come over with us from Berlin. She's actually not German, though, so she's got an outsider view on Germany, which will be very interesting. And our third speaker, last but not least, is Alexander Horn. He's an economic specialist. He's helped us. He's done tremendous work for a German magazine called Novo. Without him, the magazine wouldn't exist, which is trying to provide or counter mainstream opinion on economics. He's also a brilliant speaker. So, all right, Patrick, it's up to you. 5 minutes, not more.
Exactly. So I'm so sorry. That's why I had to put this down on paper. So I'll kick off.
Yes.
My background, first of all, to the extent relevant here. I'm a German-born citizen and entrepreneur leading a London-based firm founded by an Iraqi woman, now employing 500 professionals from 60 nationalities, exporting high-value services globally. We are a multi-ethnic organization, but not multicultural. We are all adherents of modern civilization, competent participants in modern high-performance culture, even if many of us come from less advanced societies. My contribution this morning, to play the devil's advocate and reveal a partial rationality in the stark anti-immigration agenda of the patriotic right wing of the Alternative for Germany, the AfD, from the perspective of the long-term global commonweal, that is humanity's overall flourishing. And that's also been the perspective of Karl Marx, for instance. The AfD's centrist part of federal leadership is taking a pragmatic stance against the overburdening of Germany with mass immigration since 2015 in terms of overburdening welfare, stress on housing, schools, kindergarten places, doctor appointments, etc. The AfD is proposing to reintroduce border controls, abolish pull factors like generous welfare and quick naturalization, and actually to return those without right to stay. These measures are about relieving current stresses by slowing down immigration. And in fact, despite of being vilified for a number of years for these kind of proposals, now the government and the official opposition are taking on precisely these proposals. However, the AfD's self-described patriotic wing approaches this issue from a much more fundamental perspective, grounded in a deeply felt worldview. They are emphasizing 1,500 years of history, developing a national character and culture, and they emphasize the achievements of the German nation in terms of art, philosophy, science, and industry. They say that mass immigration from culturally distant nations is an existential threat to the very survival of the German nation, the way they see it, and to the survival, indeed, of European culture in general, because we have very similar dynamics. They see a demographic time bomb which will, in the absence of decisive efforts towards reversal, lead to native Germans becoming a minority in Germany. Some background statistics: in 2019, 40% of children under the age of 5 had migration background. In 2022, it was already 41% of children up to the age of 15. The fertility rate of native Germans is far below replacement level, and the AfD right wing expects this to further shrink, if not reversed, with very significant incentives. The worry is that the minority status of native Germans is already sealed. There's a sense of existential urgency. The primary overriding political task for them is therefore to halt and reverse what they call the population substitution. For the new right and identitarian-influenced AfD patriots, this is not, as I said, primarily a pragmatic question of maintaining economic performance, but a question of the preservation of a cherished identity, the need to belong, fueled by pride and emotional attachment to the unique German nation. perhaps also expressing the particular interest of the natives, who are still a majority. These are not my feelings and concerns at all. I am arguing from the perspective of humanity's long-term flourishing on this planet. And I'm not living in Germany anymore. In yesterday's session on Western civilization under siege, the question was raised but not answered. Can Western civilization be upheld by a new non-European population? That came from the floor, wasn't answered. I rephrase this in my terms. Can modern high technology and high productivity culture be expected to continue to progress at pace, with a majority and further increasing proportion of people socialized within more backward conditions? Okay. My answer, there could indeed be reasonable doubt depending on the speed of the substitution, on where specifically the majority of the new arrivals come from and which cultural socialization they come with or receive in the second or third generation, in terms of assimilation, of the relevant aspects and integration. Increasing strife in society, loss of cohesion and political fracturing, perhaps expressed in the formation of ethnic-based political parties, are further risks that could infringe on economic development. But even in the absence of the outbreak of disrupting conflict, culture matters. Culture is a key factor in achieving freedom and prosperity. Development economics confirms this. We need to grasp the extremely improbable, rare, unique historical prosperity take of the singular escape from the Malthusian trap since 1800 in Western Europe, when productivity gains outpace the population growth there induce. This escape was finally possible by a more than 2,000-year cumulative accrual of many complementary cultural resources, an intricate network of precondition that is very difficult to copy, not least because it includes tacit ingredients that depend on deep socialization.
Thank you, Patrick. Sir, DC. In the 19th century, Germany transformed from an agrarian land into an industrial developed nation. In Germany, in German settlements in other countries, the Germans would notoriously contribute to the community. And that was the case in Brazil, in the US, in Russia. The German community was known for having good education as a cultural value, and mostly they were not disdainful for manual or physical labors. Germans would take occupations that other locals would reject. They were appreciated for their contribution to the community. Over the last century, the welfare state has been established, it is still expanding, and there is a mentality that comes with it. The big argument for the welfare state is that we must establish some minimal standards of living for all members of our community. But being a member of a community is not a one-way street. The suffocating government control of the economy and everyday life is so commonplace that few seem to notice anymore. At the present, the welfare state faces a moral dilemma. Does the welfare state genuinely embody solidarity? Is this extensive bureaucratic apparatus beneficial to those whom it's intended to benefit? The voluntary aspect of solidarity, which is essential, has already become a sort of collective servitude in Germany. Parents have little influence on their children's school education. Products that you buy over the pharmacy counter in other countries in Germany require an interaction with the pharmacist. If you want to be a baker, a carpenter, a tailor, don't rush to turn your hobby into a business. You must take a test, obtain a license, and the preparatory course can take up to 2 years. There's a number of useless services that the residents have to do in person at the municipal administration office. It is common to see people taking the morning off of work whenever they have to deal with bureaucracy. It is the manifestation of one of the worst problems of the welfare state model, where there is a concentration of executive power, an inflation of centralized planning, and a lack of popular sovereignty mechanisms. Last month, the brand boss of Volkswagen declared they were no longer competitive due to administrative costs, labor costs, and low productivity. The Coca-Cola company also wants to close 5 sites in Germany. The deputy chairman of the trade union critics to the company was that Coca-Cola earns an enormous amount of money worldwide. And here I quote what he said. This gives the impression that this is not about economic necessity, but pure greed for profit at the expense of the employees. So he believed that the Coca-Cola company employees all around the world have to support the German Coca-Cola company. He demands as right what other people have to work for. There is an ideological movement that insists that the healthcare system is failing because the rich don't pay enough without showing any evidence of that. They say that greedy investors are the main cause of the collapse of the housing market. The fact that investors are a smaller slice of the market, or the fact that investors are fleeing the housing market for a decade, has neither discouraged nor discredited this argument. That is a very popular opinion among Germans. Also, politicians and intellectuals, they get more worked up by how the pie is sliced than by how big the pie is or why is the pie shrinking. Germans got comfortable with the idea of being micromanaged and micromanaging others. We create the time and the place for authoritarian ideas to flourish and succeed. The discussion of immigration, the immigration crisis, I think it's actually a citizenship crisis, since this anti-West, anti-prosperity sentiment ends up being a point of integration for many immigrants. Europe is the soft power. It used to be actually the soft power, the model of modern democracy, economic freedom, civil liberties. It used to inspire populations in other countries in the margin of democracy, like South Americans. I hope we can discuss other problems today, like the brain drain, the deindustrialization, because there is an increase in Islamist terrorism, in homeland terrorism from the left and from the right. And all these guys set themselves as the monopolist of virtue, as the people's representatives, the leader of the group of good against evil. From the moment we let ourselves be moved by this, from the moment we consider ourselves to be the good against evil without realizing that we can be impregnated by the evil, we are already corrupt and we are blinded by the corruption of our group, our leaders, our supporters. So this is bad for public debate, and this is also what's generate the populist leaders, because the populists will justify our failures, alleviate our fears, confirm our suspicions, and help us throw rocks at our enemies.
Is Germany once again the sick man of Europe, was the headline in The Economist last summer, more than 20 years after the magazine once declared Germany to be the sick man. There's hardly anyone in Germany who would disagree with that thesis. Industrial production in Germany is around 15% below the 2018 level and has continued to fall, even though the impact of the corona crisis and also the Ukraine war has been overcome. The industrial contraction process has now so much momentum that it is shaping overall economic development. In fact, Germany's gross domestic product is lower than it was in 2018, which is 7 years ago. The German government and many economists have been claiming that private consumption will save the economy, as there are no other signs of economic upturn. But in view of impending mass redundancies in industry and the real income losses of more than 5% in the last 5 years, people are in a very bad mood to spend, so there's no rescue in sight. So what is the cause of the illness? The typical suspects cited are demographic aging, the associated shortage of skilled labor, and the excessive bureaucracy that burdens companies. There are also many complaints now about high, indeed too high, and even rising energy costs. High electricity prices in particular are seen as a problem. However, this phenomenon is denied by the many advocates of the green transformation in Germany. The claim that high energy prices are only a temporary problem, as the transformation is not processing fast enough, and we are therefore not yet benefiting from the very favorable long-term energy prices. The sun doesn't send a bill, so the story goes, but the oil sheiks do. However, energy policy is the central problem, because climate policy behind it takes no account whatsoever on social prosperity. It is causing prosperity-destroying energy costs by unilaterally aiming to make Germany climate neutral by 2045, instead of also considering the option of adapting to man-made and natural climate change. It is based on the premise, and I think that's very important, that energy consumption per capita must be drastically reduced. That's also part of the Green Deal in the EU, in order to be able to cover the remaining consumption exclusively with climate-neutral energy, which in Germany is almost exclusively wind and solar energy. So, what impact does this climate policy have on energy costs and the economy in particular? The effects on electricity costs are very clear by now. Renewable energies account for less than 20% of the total energy consumption in Germany, but The expansion of wind and solar energy over the past 25 years has meant that now almost 60% of electricity in Germany is covered by wind and solar power. This has a huge impact because wind and solar energy plants only supply energy when the whims of nature allow it. However, the energy requirements of a highly industrialized society are completely different. In order to be able to supply electricity in line with demand, there are basically only two options. Either you store the surplus energy when the renewables deliver and feed this energy back into the grid when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing, or complementary energy supply is provided for this case so that weeks of dark doldrums can be overcome. In Germany, it is now becoming very clear in practical terms how enormously expensive the switch to renewable energies is. It can be argued that the cheapest renewable electricity from offshore wind turbines in our latitudes is generated at a price that is compatible to the cheapest fossil fuel electricity generation, which is coal. However, this cheap wind power has to be stored, for example, by converting it into hydrogen, so that it can be used again when a wind turbine is generating little or no electricity. Almost 3/4 of the energy is lost due to the physical efficiencies in the energy conversion process. Alone, the resulting electricity price is correspondingly higher. The costs are no lower for battery storage or for maintaining a completely complementary energy generation system that is also to be converted to green energy. And just the last sentence, for that reason, just to give you an idea what that means, electricity prices now in Germany are at 35 cents per kilowatt hour. And before the Ukraine war, gas prices were at 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So we have a really enormous increase in energy.